I never imagined that I would find myself in this predicament, yet here I am, sitting in our vacant master bedroom, gazing at his closet side. The hangers continue to wobble a little. James, 38, and I have been married for 4 years. My name is Savannah, and I am 29 years old. I should state that James and I were wed. In hindsight, I may have exerted too much pressure, but really, what else are you to do when you're married to someone who seldom ever has ambition or drive? While completing my MBA, I got to know James. He had already made a name for himself as an environmental engineer, and I believed I had met someone steady who shared my enthusiasm. However, people do change, don't they? Or perhaps they simply display their actual selves. The breaking point was more comparable to death by 1,000 wounds than a major altercation or controversy. It accumulated each time I returned home from my consulting job to discover him happy with his 9-to-5 schedule. Each time he declined a promotion because he was happy in his current role. And each time he preferred to spend time in his garden over networking with me at industry events. I got a career-making project at work last month, the kind that makes the management team take notice. I demonstrated my abilities by working late into the night to coordinate with clients from abroad. James, too, he just proposed that we go to see his parents for the weekend or asked if I wanted to watch some dumb TV with him. He seemed incapable of reading the room. I made an effort to convey to him the significance of this for us. A companion track position can result from this. He would give me this expression as if I were speaking a foreign language. When I told him that we could finally afford that house in Brighton Hills, he would add, "We're doing fine, Sav. Perhaps we ought to concentrate on appreciating what we have." While my co-worker Rachel recently moved into a lakefront home, we were living in a respectable but utterly ordinary community. Her husband made the right decision. In the last 2 years, he has changed employment 3 times, each time taking advantage of a better offer. James, meanwhile, took pride in working for the same employer for 10 years. 2 weeks ago, things reached a breaking point. James wasn't there to encourage me after I concluded a very important presentation. He was at a community garden meeting. I lost it when he got home with dirt still beneath his fingernails. I explained how his lack of drive was preventing us from moving forward and how embarrassing it was to have a husband who was happy with mediocrity while everyone else was achieving their goals. I warned him, "You're wasting your potential." When my husband would prefer to play in the dirt than further his career, you can see how that appears. He attempted to make the case that life was about more than just moving up the corporate ladder, and that he was pleased with his work-life balance. I thought I married someone with drive, not someone who peaked in their 30s. Equilibrium? More like settling. I was unable to stop myself. I had been suppressing it, and now it simply poured out. I screamed, "You're failing me, you're failing. US, even though you are meant to be my partner, you are a failure as a husband and deadweight who can't even match his wife's drive. Thank goodness we don't have children yet, since you would fail as a parent as well." Telling them that being ordinary is acceptable, I thought he would fight back, that he would be passionate about something. Rather, he simply became very silent. He spent the entire night in his study. The days that followed were tense. He went to work, returned home, and hardly spoke. I assumed he was taking in what I had said, perhaps at last recognizing he needed to take charge. Then, yesterday, I arrived home from work late once more. It was a different house. I was initially unable to identify it. Then I saw that his keys were missing from the bowl at the door and that his laptop had vanished from the kitchen counter. Half the hangers were empty and the closet door was open when I walked upstairs. No email, text, or note, just gone since last night. I've called him 20 times, each time going directly to voicemail. The only thing his best friend will tell me is that James is safe, secure. How about me? What about our shared life? He should confront this head on, but how dare he just walk away? My mother advises me to give him some space because guys require time to think things through. What is the process, the reality? While he has been happy to coast, I have been the one to continue this relationship. I'm the one who needs time to think. I can't take my eyes off the wedding pictures hanging on the wall. We appeared so promising and flawless. At what point did he decide to give up trying? How did he get so comfortable? Once more, my phone is vibrating. It's most likely Rachel checking in. Since I told her what had happened, she has been texting Constantly, I should respond, but because our narrative isn't meant to finish like this. 3 days have passed since my last post, and things have gotten even more complicated. At last, James consented to meet me at Riverside Park, which he referred to as neutral ground, as if we were rival armies rather than husband and wife, with all the reasons why he was overreacting to what was merely an open discussion about our future. I arrived early, dressed in the blue dress he always liked. I saw him wearing that faded Stanford engineering hoodie he won't part with, sitting on a bench by the water. He appeared worn out and older in some way, but he had shaved and his hair was cut nicely. I wanted to run up to him, give him a hug, and tell him to go home so that we could put this whole thing behind us. However, another part of me recalled how he simply left, how he had given up on our marriage rather than taking charge. When I sat down, he said, "You look well," as if we were random acquaintances who happened to cross paths at Whole Foods. He just sat there observing the ducks while I waited for him to elaborate or offer an apology for going missing. At last, the silence became unbearable to me. "That's it, then? You won't even give a reason for your departure?" When he turned to face me, his eyes looked different, far away, as if he were staring at a complete stranger. "Sav, I believe your explanation was rather clear. I'm dead weight, a failure, and unfit to be your husband or possible father." I was upset, I said. "You know how intense things get during huge projects. I just needed you to understand how essential is for our future." "Our future?" he repeated slowly. "You know, I've been thinking a lot about that. About what you said regarding my career choices and aspiration." He shifted on the bench, turning to face me fully. "Did you ever consider that? Maybe I'm precisely where I want to be." I felt that usual fury bubbling up. "How can you say that? You might be making twice what you make now if you just let me finish," he cut in, his voice stern but not. "I've spent the last 10 years inventing sustainable water treatment methods. My effort has helped supply clean water to places that sorely need it. My team's Honduran project was authorized for expansion last month. It's important, even though it's not ostentatious and won't get me invited to charity galas." I attempted to clarify, adding, "I'm not saying your work isn't important, but you could be doing so much more, leading bigger projects, managing larger teams." "Savannah, that's exactly what it is. Managing bigger teams is not something I want to do. I don't want to spend my days reviewing budgets and attending strategy sessions. I wish to be actively involved in the work. Indeed, I enjoy my community garden because it helps me stay grounded outside of PowerPoints and spreadsheets. However, there is so much more we could have. That mansion in Brighton Hills," I pressed. A nearby jogger glanced over as he abruptly turned up the music, saying, "We don't need a house in Brighton Hills." He spoke more softly. "Everything in our house is fine. We have wonderful neighbors. It's convenient to both of our work, and there's plenty of room for two people." How did having plenty turn into such a negative thing? Tears threatened to well up in my eyes. "So you're simply abandoning us and all of our plans?" With a groan, he combed through his hair. "Sav, the plans are always changing. We discussed starting a family after we were married. Instead, by now, whenever I bring it up, you have a new objective for us to achieve. First, a new job to pursue, a new home to save for. When is enough enough? Oh. So my ambition is to blame for this, because I want us to be as successful as we can be. You see, our potential is back. You keep using that word, but it simply refers to what you think success is." He took out his phone and displayed a picture of himself with a bunch of children, all of whom were grinning broadly and wearing garden gloves. It was the first time these community center students had ever seen a tomato plant through our garden program. They are now learning about sustainability and cultivating their own food. To me, that is success. That has promise. We seem to be speaking different languages. In my opinion, that's really beautiful, James. But we can't rely on happy memories and tomato plants to shape our future. In fact, can I earn 6 figures performing work that I'm passionate about? We have a lovely house, a large retirement fund, and no debt other than the mortgage. But you don't care about all of that because Rachel's husband recently purchased a home on the lake, don't you? I winced. It's unfair. No. Having a partner that bases your value on your LinkedIn profile is unfair. Pushing his hands into his pockets, he got to his feet. "I love you, Savannah. I have since the day we met, but I don't recognize you anymore. The woman I married was ambitious. Yes, but she also had compassion. She understood that success isn't just about money and status. The spouse of yours grew up. She that you had to keep moving forward in the real world, or you risked falling behind. Who is left behind? Your co-workers, the neighbors. At what point did their views become more important than your own happiness or our happiness? My voice shook as I stood there, too hurt. And so what now? You're just going to throw away our marriage because I want more for us. No, he muttered. He turned around as he began to leave, saying, I'm stepping back because you can't see that what we have is already enough. Because you'd rather tear me down than accept that my dreams are different from yours. You know what the irony is? I've never been prouder of anyone than I am of you, your drive, your intelligence, and your ability to make things happen there. Incredible. I just wish you could be proud of me too. James, wait, he said. But he had already started to leave, leaving me alone with the ducks and a void in my chest that seemed worse than when he had initially gone. Tears were streaming down my meticulously applied makeup as I slid back onto the bench. Rachel asked if I wanted to join her for wine and female conversation when my phone chimed. I chose to disregard it. When James showed me that picture of the garden kids, all I could think about was his face. I don't remember ever seeing him so excited about anything. How recently had I even inquired? I will not allow him to turn around on me. The person who left is not me. I'm not the type to be content with simply existing. Must not be all there is to life. Being satisfied with enough must not be enough. After another week, I've made a huge mistake, the kind of mistake that makes all of our earlier issues seem insignificant. I have to get out somewhere, yet I can hardly write it without being nauseous. I poured myself into my work even more after that park incident, sitting at the office until midnight, and making early morning calls to clients in other countries, anything to keep our house from being empty. Last Friday, Rachel persuaded me to join her and a few co-workers for happy hour, which helped me finally shake off my funk. The idea of spending another night by myself with my thoughts was worse than the fact that I didn't even want to go. James always said that the new rooftop bar downtown was trying too hard to seem classy. So we headed there. I suppose he was also correct about it. Everything about it said, look how successful we are, from the expansive city vistas to the martini glasses with gold rims. Rachel insisted that I must remember my value while she ordered rounds of pricey champagne. After drinking her third glass, she asked, you know what your problem is? I recall becoming upset when someone said, you married too young, you hadn't even figured out your full potential yet. The fault is not with me, but with James, who has values. Hurry up. The individual genuinely contributes to the provision of clean water in underprivileged areas. He is a walking advertisement for a nonprofit, but that doesn't pay for vacation homes or designer bags. She rolled her eyes. I felt uneasy with the way she said it for some reason, how shallow it sounded. She then brought me to meet Blake. I was in town for a conference. He had a smart suit, a high-end watch, and was already discussing his next real estate investment. He was everything James wasn't. The champagne continued to flow, and I kept getting pulled into his talk. I was aware of its direction. I was aware that Blake was on his way to my place at the time and offered to share his Uber back to his hotel when I failed to correct him. A voice in my head kept telling me to stop. But there was also a voice that kept saying that perhaps this was what I needed, someone who understood ambition and wouldn't make me feel terrible for wanting more. My stomach was in knots and my head was throbbing when I woke up at 4 a.m. in his hotel room. The sound of his Rolex ticking on the nightstand was so loud that it seemed to be inside my skull. Feeling like the biggest cliché in the world, I ordered Uber and got dressed in the dark. The worst thing, Blake awakened and said something about getting breakfast during the little time I was waiting for my vehicle, as if this were commonplace and I were just another driven lady enjoying a wonderful night out. Right there, I almost puked. The ride home was filled with waves of shame. But it was about everything, not only Blake. God, that was awful enough. I recalled how James' entire face brightened when he showed me the picture of the children in his garden program. When was the last time I had such unadulterated happiness over anything? Suddenly, even my major project at work, the one I had been obsessing over, seemed pointless. Since then, I have been ignoring James's texts and phone calls. He has been attempting to schedule another meeting to discuss the situation, stating that he believes we can resolve it if both of us are prepared to pay close attention. What should I do with him now, knowing what I've done? How can I sit across from him and gaze into those sincere eyes? I was having lunch yesterday when I drove by his office building. I caught him chuckling about something as he left with a few coworkers. He didn't look very good, but he looked all right, even though he was sporting that shabby Stanford sweatshirt once more. I wasn't as annoyed by it as I once was, rather. I recalled how I used to steal and how it smelled like his body wash and garden soil. Rachel keeps contacting me on chilly mornings, telling me to be honest with myself and not feel guilty about considering my options. She doesn't understand. Is about my destroying something real because I was blind to what was in front of me, not about considering other possibilities. However, despite my current feelings of remorse and disgust, there is still a part of me that believes I wasn't totally mistaken about everything. I did a terrible job of handling it. Yes, I cannot be forgiven for what I did to Blake. However, is it really so terrible to want more from life and to not be content with what you have, when you might have it all? This morning, James texted once again. He says he's been thinking a lot about our future and has some ideas about how we could work through our disagreements, and he wants to meet this weekend. In fact, when I read that, my heart briefly stopped. I have this secret that would ruin any hope of reconciliation, and he's working so hard to mend us. I know that I should tell him. I can't breathe, though. Every time I imagine the expression on his face when he discovers what I've done. I sit here in our house, or rather my house today, surrounded by all these things that I felt were the framed magazine article about the success of my firm, the large TV I insisted we required, and the designer furniture James believed was unneeded. Now, none of it seems sufficient, perhaps. However, that has always been the issue. I've never felt like I had enough, and now I could have shattered the one thing that I did. Yesterday, the meeting I've been dreading finally took place. James proposed that we meet at our house, emphasizing that it was our house and not mine. I tried to make everything perfect throughout the morning, as if his favorite snacks and the perfect coffee would somehow make up for everything I had done. Naturally, he was punctual. It was his trademark reliability, the same trait I used to deride as uninteresting. But he appeared different, more determined. He was dressed in a fresh blue button-down instead of his typical casual attire, as if he had gotten a haircut. When I realized that would not be the reconciliation I had hoped for, my stomach fell. After we were seated in the living room, he remarked, "I've been seeing a therapist." There was no small talk, no warm-up. She has given me insight into several aspects of our relationship, myself, and the reasons behind my feelings of devaluation. I started to protest, but he raised his hand instead. He inhaled deeply and said, "Please let me finish. I need to say this. I love what I do, Savannah. I love that my work makes a real difference in people's lives. I love my community garden program. And yes, I love that I can leave work at 5 p.m. the leisure to enjoy my life. It's selecting a different form of achievement, not a lack of ambition." As I mentioned in a hushed voice, "I have also been considering that, have you? Because this is my opinion." Your eyes were piercing as you leaned forward. "I believe you've lost the ability to simply be joyful. Because you're so afraid of not being exceptional. Everything must be greater, better, and more striking." But Sav, when will it be enough? When will you be able to take a moment to appreciate what you have created? I was being choked by guilt. I had to inform him, "James, there's something I saw for words, for simple words that made my world stop spinning. Last Friday, I was picking up takeout downtown when I saw you getting into that Uber. I saw who you were with. The room started spinning." "James, I don't." His tone cracked. "Just don't. You know what's funny? I came by that night to surprise you. I had this whole speech planned about how we could compromise. Maybe I could take on more responsibility at work and you could scale back just a little and find a balance. I even bought your favorite gelato." He laughed, "But the sound was off when you didn't return home. I contacted hospitals and waited for hours, certain that something horrible had occurred." Now I was crying uncontrollably, ugly tears. It had no significance. In addition to being angry, I was intoxicated, searching for a more driven individual. His voice sounded like a slap due to its venom. "You know what real ambition is, Savannah? It's working on something you believe in even when it's not flashy. It's choosing to be kind when it's easier to be cruel. It's building a marriage based on trust and respect, not competition and status." "I know I messed up," I said quietly. But we can fix this, we can go to counseling. Take some time. He stood up. And I noticed that he wasn't wearing his wedding band. We can't fix this because you still don't get it. You're not sorry about what you did, you're sorry you got caught. You're sorry because this makes you look bad even now. You're probably wondering what people will say when they find out. He wasn't entirely incorrect. A part of me was already afraid of the office whispers, the gossip, the criticism, and Rachel's phony pity. Saying in a low voice, I filed for divorce last week. The papers are being delivered tomorrow. I'm not doing this to punish you, Sav. I'm doing it because we want fundamentally different things from life. And neither of us should have to change who we are to make this work. But I love you, I shouted, resenting the size of my voice. He went to the door and turned around, saying, maybe you do. But you love your idea of success more. You know what the saddest part is? You're already successful. You have a career, a beautiful home, and respect in your field. But you'll never see it because you're too busy looking at what everyone else has. That was the last time I believed that was the end of it. Surrounded by all the costly items I had insisted we required, I sat there for hours. The more expensive designer lamp, James's whole budget for the garden program, the framed accomplishments on the walls, and the smart home equipment he said was superfluous. Rachel must have wanted to know how it went since my phone kept buzzing for the first time in years. I switched it off. I sat quietly and took a close look at my life. I remembered James's expression as he spoke of his water treatment projects, the children in his garden program, and the numerous occasions he attempted to express his happiness to me. But I rejected it as settling for less. This morning, the divorce documents arrived. James was thorough. He is only requesting his own items and gardening supplies. He even left me the house of which I was so proud, but now that I'm sitting here, it feels more like a monument to all of my mistakes than a win. I can't get his statement about being happy versus being special out of my head. I decided they couldn't be the same thing. At what point? When did I begin using other people's criteria rather than my own to determine success? I have no idea what will happen next. My major project at work no longer seems to be that important. Calls from Rachel end up in voicemail. The mansion seems excessively large, vacant, and overwhelming. Perhaps James was correct. Perhaps I never mastered the art of contentment. However, I'm beginning to believe that's something I should study. For me, not for him. That's too late. Because I have a lot of expensive stuff and no one to share it with because of all my ambition and drive for more. I told him he was a father and spouse. As it happens, I was the one who failed at being a wife, being truthful, and understanding what matters most, and now I'm on my own, trying to put the pieces of a life I destroyed back together.